Okay, welcome everyone to today's webinar, 3 ways to reduce alert noise and fatigue. My name is Sean Penny. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Opsgenie, and I'm joined by Colin Saunders. Colin, how are you?
Doing well, how are you?
Good. So we've got a pretty good sized crowd on the line, so we thank you guys for all showing up to the webinar and registering it. It's great to see the enthusiasm and the interest in the product. And this is gonna be a good introduction, and also good for any more senior users of the product on some tips and tricks on how to reduce just that, the alert noise and fatigue, and kind of set your account up for success. So if you have any questions, please ask. If you've been on our webinars before, we love to interact and keep it as interactive as possible. If you have questions, you don't have to hold them to the end. I'll be kind of emceeing and answering or fielding questions. Colin will probably be answering most of the questions, and we'll kind of work together to sort that out. So if something comes up that triggers a question in your mind for your own scenario, please ask, and we'll take care of that. And if we run out of time, we can always follow up at the end with questions offline or whatever as well. So the agenda is short. We'll talk a little bit about alert fatigue up front, kind of the one-on-one of like why it's a problem and why we're here to solve it with Opsgenie, really the core functionality of our product. And then Colin's going to dive right into 3 ways specifically to reduce it and kind of organize the chaos. And then if there's any other questions that pop up for scenarios, feel free to ask, and we can dive into those as well. We've got plenty of time here today to get everything answered. And then if there's any questions at the end, we'll follow up as well. So to kind of level set and make sure everyone's on the same page, the typical IT environment that we deal with at Opsgenie, and one of the reasons the company was founded was we're seeing more and more companies with more and more complex IT and dev stacks, right? So you've got you may have stuff that's still on-prem, you may be 100% in the cloud, or maybe a hybrid model. And what companies do is they implement, as they move to the cloud, you're implementing a lot of monitoring tools, which I'm sure you guys all have, the Datadogs of the world, et cetera. Chat ops tools, ticketing tools, Jira, you name it, different tools to monitor all your systems, make sure log files are loading, making sure code is being delivered continuously, et cetera, et cetera. And those tools are all great, and we integrate with many of them. We have 200 integrations across the board. But the only problem is you end up with what's in the middle there of the screen, a lot of email alerts from all those tools. And if you just try to manage that yourself, that's where you end up with like the alert fatigue and noise, because the signal to noise is usually way out of kilter. And you're kind of looking for that needle in the haystack. And that leaves your operations team focusing more on, trying to find those needles in the haystack than really being able to focus on doing their job really well and being able to think strategically about the business and the operational or the dev side of it. And that's where Opsgenie comes in, and that's what we're talking about today. So again, the notifications can be missed, members receive non-relevant alerts, communication is definitely one-directional, and alert fatigue can reduce responsiveness overall. So those are the kind of issues that we're trying to solve, and what we want to talk about more in detail here, because when you first set up your Opsgenie account, it's kind of a green field of opportunity in terms of how you want to set it up and what you want to do. But there are some key specific things you can do first, whether you're just setting up, you're in a trial today, or you've been a customer for a while, that you can kind of help calm that chaos and make sure you're in good shape. And that's what we're going to dive into. So, and we pulled a couple of questions that kind of tie into reducing the noise that we've seen from customers. Dealing with alerts. How do I deal with alerts generated by repeated emails? If there's one alert, I don't need 10 alerts in the system if the system keeps sending the email. Or what I would like to do is send an alert only if I get the same message more than 3 times in a 2-minute period. Well, that sounds great. I think we'd all like to do that. So those are the kind of things that we're going to talk to you in a couple of the examples and use cases that Colin has, that he works with customers daily on, and that we're going to dive into. So with that, I'm going to pass controls over to Colin here, and we'll dive into the software. And again, please ask any questions, and we'll try to give you guys as much context as we can as we're talking. And we'll go from there. All right, let's give you control here. Let's see what we got.
See everything?
Yeah.
All right, that's great. Okay, so first thing that I really want to go over is the ability to go ahead and suppress alerts, whether that be by priority, alert source, or even by a tag. So Opsgenie has this basis of teams, and so originally our notification policies were based on a global level, but as we've moved more and more towards teams, we have moved our notification policies into a team-based setting. So you'll see up here, you've got this policy section. And then down below, we have this notification policy area. So in the event that maybe you guys, someone is receiving a lot of alerts, maybe some informational alerts, they want to make sure that these alerts get into the system, but they don't really want to be notified of them. This is an area that this notification policy really comes in handy. It allows us to still pull in all that information so that we can take that data and then use that in reporting, and just gives you a better understanding, make some visualizations on that data as well. But you'll see here in this area, we have the ability to go ahead and create filter conditions on basically what properties of the alerts that we want to filter on to decide what's going to be caught by this policy. One other thing to note is the ability down here is you'll see here there's an option to restrict time intervals. I'll go into that a little bit further in a little bit later, but right now we'll take a look at being able to go ahead and suppress notifications, whether that be on a certain time interval or even just permanently. So you'll see here that I have the option to go ahead and check that off, and there's this section here to suppress those notifications permanently. A lot of the times what I'll see is that there are some informational alerts that people do want coming into Opsgenie, but they're just going to want to suppress those and have them close on their own, rather than having to go out and close them manually. So one of the things that people will do is they'll team this suppress notifications permanently up with something like a close alert, an auto close, and anything that will match these conditions up here. So for example, if we wanted to say, hey, if priority is equals P5, we don't really want to be notified of that stuff. We just want that to come into Opsgenie and automatically close after a minute. You can go ahead and set up those rules within this section. So there are also a lot of cases where somebody is getting some more, I guess, less meaningful alerts, and they will go ahead and close on their own. So for example, if you had a alert that came in and it had some type of tag where it basically said, based on this tag, you were able to say, you know, this isn't something that I need to be notified of right away, but maybe if it keeps occurring and doesn't close on its own within a time period of a specific number of minutes, I do want to receive that notification. A lot of our customers will go ahead and use this option, which basically we can just take a tag or any other condition within an alert, and say, hey, we want to delay all these alerts for maybe 10 minutes. So this gives it the opportunity to, maybe if it's a flapping server, to go ahead and open and close on its own. And if it closes, we won't go ahead and no one will receive that notification. It's just another opportunity to really avoid having to deal with stuff that's going to really be meaningless in the end. So moving on from there, one of the really common ways that people use notification policies in Opsgenie will be if maybe a certain alert comes in at a certain time, they want to make sure that they're not notified during that time and really delay it until they get into the office, because it is something that they do want to take action on and look at, but it's not something that they're really going to have to take action on right away. So one of the ways that you could do that is by restricting maybe to certain time intervals. So for example, if maybe I get something in the off hours on a Monday, it contains certain things that just don't really mean anything to me until I get in that next day in the office, I can go ahead and build out those time interval rules, and based on the time interval conditions and maybe a combination of conditions that are above here, we can go ahead and delay those notifications until the next time I get into the office at maybe 8:30. And you can really choose any of these different options here. So I know in a lot of cases there might be a different way that you want to handle it. For example, if you just want it to come in during the weekday, if on the weekends you don't want to have to deal with something like that, this would be an area where you could go ahead and set that up. It comes in handy a lot, especially in those off-hour situations, and it really avoids you. It stops you from missing important alerts, but it also stops from being bothered in those hours where it's not something that you're really going to have to look at until you get into work the next morning.
And Colin, there is one question that came up so far. So is it possible for me to decide how my team gets alerted so they can't control it? So for example, if a high priority alert comes in only as an email, but I want my team to receive it as a phone call, is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. For that, we would use something a bit different from our policies. So we have this idea of custom roles. So if I were to go to the users page, for example, you'll see up here within our enterprise plan, we have you have the ability to go ahead and create a custom role, and you can do that based on the user role, and it can use just basic. It can have the basic user permissions, but you can just give that a name. And by doing this, we'll just call this Colin Custom for this example. By creating this role, we can then go ahead and refer back to that in what's called a central notification template. So if I go ahead and create this role, and then I go to maybe some of my users, Colin test, just do star. I can go ahead and assign that role to them. I know it's a bit messy here, but what I'll then do from there is based on that user role within our settings page, I have the option to go ahead and create a central notification template. What this does is it allows me to go in and, for example, if I say Colin Custom, I'm going to go ahead and build out a central rule that will determine how all of my users that are part of that role are going to be notified. So we'll go ahead and click Save. In this area, you'll see here that you can create those new rule alerts, or create central new alert rule. For example, if I wanted to create a special alert, maybe for certain conditions, if a tag contained critical, then I can go ahead and say, hey, I want these users to be notified by voice right away. Maybe I'll have them after 2 minutes. We're going to notify them by SMS, and you can really build out those rules based on how you want that role to look.
Cool. I think there's another question that came in. Let's see if we can get to this one. So how to send email to a group first and then follow the escalation policy for an alert.
Okay. So for that, actually, we believe we do have something that maybe it would be better to sort of talk offline, but
we can follow up.
Yeah, it's something that we would use. Maybe a custom Lambda script to trigger a different alert, but that would be something that I think would be better if we followed up.
We can follow up offline to dive into the details of it. I'll send a message here so we can make sure we connect with you. Thanks for the question.
So kind of diving back into this idea of these policies, and really diving into that, basically that second question that a customer had where they really only want to receive an alert if it comes up within a certain number of times within a specific time period. So for example, if we go ahead and we build out these filter conditions based on maybe an alert or a tag or maybe even the source, if it's a specific integration that you want to go ahead and set rules for, we can go ahead and do so. And then within this section here, you'll see that there's this option down here where we can delay notifications until once a deduplication count has reached a certain number, and then the option below, which is to delay notifications unless an alert has occurred a certain number of times. So for example, if I go ahead and set this up in this manner where we'll say, hey, I want to go ahead and receive, if an alert comes in twice within 2 minutes, I don't want to go ahead, I don't want to send out notifications right away, but after that, I don't want to send out notifications right away when that alert comes in, but after 2 minutes, if we receive it twice, let's go ahead and send those out. I can actually show you I'll trigger an alert very quickly, and we can show you how that would look after that has happened. All right, so we'll just go ahead and create this. I don't think it's showing my postman. Just go ahead and send. All right, so let's take a look at this. I've just triggered a few alerts. You'll see it. I actually triggered it after the alert count. I actually moved up the alert count to 3, but because I have that policy enabled within this Teams, you'll see down here that it's already set to the notification flow will not start unless the deduplication condition is matched in that policy. So since I just quickly went through and triggered off 3 alerts, you'll see that count increased to 2. And as soon as that happened, that policy was then satisfied, and it began to add recipients to this alert and notify these recipients based on the rules that are set up for that particular integration. All right, so take a look back here. And then the one final piece that I really wanted to touch on in this section is really the ability to really team all of these up together. So within the notification policies, there's a number of different checkboxes here. Whenever you're creating a notification policy, it's important, especially when it's team-based, that anything that you want to go ahead and delay and suppress and then maybe also auto close, you're going to want to set those within one single policy. The reason being is because we're only going to match a policy within a team-based policy one time it's not going to continue to go and evaluate all of the different policies that are listed within the team. So it's really important that if you're going to do something like suppress notifications permanently and auto close, that you go ahead and you team these up together to make sure that it works the way that you want it to, and that none of these different features are missed. So moving from there into more into like the alert level, we're going to talk a little bit more about the deduplication process in Opsgenie and how we really use the alias to go ahead and deduplicate alerts. So for this, I'm just going to look at my demo API integration that I have here. So one thing that's really important to point out when it comes to really creating alerts in Opsgenie and making sure that you're not being overwhelmed by having a number of different alerts created is making sure that this alias field is always unique to each alert. So for example, a lot of customers will leverage our email integration. And with our email integrations, we don't necessarily define an alias by default. So for example, if you continue to send emails to Opsgenie, it's really important that if there are going to be emails that you want to deduplicate, or emails that you want to either create new alerts, that you're using a parameter that's going to work for that particular integration. So if in the event that maybe I have a tool that's sending me alerts, it's going to be extremely important for me to go ahead and use a field that's going to not only identify when an alert is going to be the same as maybe a previous alert that is opened, but also to make sure that it's something that's going to be unique enough to create alerts when it is necessary, that when it's like a different type of when it is a different type of alert. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the alert that I have created here. See, within this alert, you'll notice that just because I sent this through and defined an alias, that the alias field has this testing deduplication alias. So every time I send an alert comes to Opsgenie with that same alias, you're going to see the count here increase. So for example, right here you'll see that the alert that we have received an alert that had the same alias, and we increased that count by another by 1. And as we continue to receive alerts with that same alias and the alert is still open, we're going to continue to increase that count. So for example, if you go ahead and close an alert and we receive an alert with that alias, it will create a new alert. So I just sent a new one into this demo environment, and you'll see here that created again. But if for example, if it comes from the same exact integration, but I change it to something else, change that alias to something else, we're still going to receive a different alert. So this comes in handy when we really need to, when you want to still have maybe similar alerts, but also when you want to just make sure that I don't want to continue to receive notifications for the same alert over and over again. I just want the count to increase and to be notified when that count increases, or to be notified that first time. And you'll see here, as soon as I went ahead and sent in another alert, we went ahead and deduplicated that as well. So was there another question? I think I saw one.
No, I think there's no one.
Okay.
Or we can,
yeah.
So we can take any other questions offline. So yeah, if there are any other questions, now would be a good time to put them into the chat box there, and we're happy to answer them online while we're in the software with Colin here. I'll take that control for the moment, unless there's anything else that's worth showing. But we can wait for a couple questions to come in, and we can talk about a couple other things in Opsgenie as well.
Yeah, just as far as notifications, I think that sort of gives a good overview of how we can go ahead and not only deduplicate alerts when it's necessary, but also delay notification. Delay notification when it's maybe something is not as critical, or maybe needs to be looked at after a period of time has passed.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, great. There's one question. Someone out there is looking for a little bit more clarification on deduplicating alerts.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to go over high level again real quick.
Yeah, that's fine. If I'll go ahead and I'll actually use a bit different example. We'll take a look at one of our email integrations, because these we find that in email, creating an alias and having it work the way, having an email integration work the way that you want it to, can sometimes be a bit challenging. So for example, whenever we receive an email to this address here, we're going to go ahead and create an alert. That alert, by default, is going to use the subject of that email as the message for that alert, and then take that message of that email and use that within the description. So because of that, because an email, grassroots, they can come in all different shapes and sizes. It makes it a bit harder to determine what we're going to use to either deduplicate an alert or to create, just to know to create a new alert. So one thing that I've found that in some cases when it comes to using network equipment to send emails to create alerts in Opsgenie, sometimes the different network equipment that a customer has will send out from different email addresses. So in that instance, using something like a from address allows us to know, hey, if we receive an email from this address that says that the alert is down, or we receive something that would cause us to create an alert, and it's from the same address while an alert is already open, we're going to go ahead and add to that count. And in contrast, if we receive an alert from a different address to this same email address, the same endpoint that we're using to ingest alerts, we're going to go ahead and create a new alert. So this alias field is it's the unique identifier that we use to determine whether something is a part of the same grouping or if it's a completely new alert that we need to go ahead and send out notifications for. So not only can you use the from address, but a lot of customers, for example, will use a system called string processing. What this allows us to do is, in the case of an email, we can either take a certain piece of a string from within the subject or the message that's going to be completely unique to each alert. So if you have basically a lot of different alerts sending from the same email address, this might come in handy, where you go ahead and use something like message.substring between, and we'll just say X and Y for now, X, comma, Y. This allows you to pull out a specific string between those two characters right there, or you can use strings as well, and give you a unique identifier for an email message, and really can help with basically stopping a lot of email alerts from continuing to come in and continuing to notify you, especially if they're the same thing. We're going to go ahead looking to see what's in that field, and based on what's in that field, we are going to determine, okay, do we add to the alert count or do we create a new alert? So this alias field is really the main component of how we deduplicate alerts and how we stop from continuing to send you meaningless notifications when you're going ahead and working on a problem.
Got it. Great. Let's see. All right, here's a bit of a longer question. Let's see if we can get to this one. Is there a flapping alarm, say from Pingdom, which opens and closes within 1 to 2 minutes? Since the alert gets closed, a new one will get created if it fails again. Does Opsgenie have any way to manage this so a flapping alert can be tracked until it stops flapping? Absolutely.
So for this, I'm going to go back towards the notification policies, because this is where, especially for Pingdom, I have seen this come in handy a lot. So if I were to go ahead, if I had something that was going to continuously open, close, and I sort of knew the time interval that it opens and closes, what I'd do is I'd go ahead and build out a notification policy for that. So for example, if you had a Pingdom alarm that was opening and closing every 5 minutes, but unless that alarm stayed open for maybe 15 minutes, that's the only time you actually wanted to receive a notification. You could go ahead and set maybe the source. We're going to say in this case it's going to be source is Pingdom, and maybe any other conditions that you want to use. Maybe we'll say server 1, 2, 3 for this. We can go ahead and delay notifications for all alerts that come in for server 1, 2, 3, and from Pingdom for 15 minutes. What this allows us to do is say when an alert comes in and it closes in that 5-minute period of time, we're going to go ahead and we won't notify you because we've already decided, hey, we're going to delay all these alerts for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, that's when we're going to go ahead and send out those notifications. And if the alert closes, we won't send out anything. So that's sort of how you would handle the alerts from any flapping servers or any flapping alerts that you're receiving.
Great. All right, so I think that gets us caught up on all the questions at this point. And we can, if there's any other questions, now's a good time to put them in the chat, and we can dive back into the software as needed. So I'll take it back to my side here. Okay. Oops. All right, so that's, thanks Colin for that, a great overview. That was a lot of good tips there, a lot of good ways to kind of organize alerts and deduplicate and set up notifications. So really the next steps are to put this into action, really. And one of the things that we can do, obviously we're here to help, customer success. I want to put a quick poll on the screen to kind of gauge, who would like help. If if you want some follow-up, we're here to, like I said, we're here to help you guys. So if there is, if you see that poll pop on the screen, you can just vote. That would help us kind of understand, like, first of all, who's on the meeting, the webinar today, and if there's anyone in particular that would like some follow-up, we can definitely do that. So if you can go ahead and vote there, either way, that's appreciated. All right, so it's a kind of a split. Some people are all set, some people want some help, so we can follow up with that offline for sure. So let me close that down. All right. Great. So, and then just some last housekeeping items, to what's new. I'd like to always let you guys know, because we're launching things at an increasingly fast rate here. Over 200 integrations at this point. In the last week, or last couple weeks, I guess I'd say, all new integrations, or in Dynatrace's case, that's a version 2 integration that we now have. So if you're using Lightstep for monitoring, or Looker, the analytics tool, or GitLab, or Azure, all those integrations are out there. So we have documentation on all of them on our documentation site, or send us a note anytime if you have questions on any of those, and we can help you integrate your tools, because that's really what it's all about at Opsgenie, unlocking the power of all the tools they are using in one centralized location. And then also just a plug for our next webinar there, more of an advanced topic. So we're going to be showing you ways you can kind of use AWS Lambda and kind of enhance Opsgenie and kind of do some custom actions and some custom coding there. So for anyone who's kind of more on the technical side and is interested in that, that's a great one to attend. That's next Wednesday. So there'll be emails going out about that. It's also on our website, and that link is in the deck too if you want to sign up. That's going to be a good session with one of the technical folks on our team. All right, so let me just check one last time for questions here. I think we're all set with questions, unless anyone else has a last question. You can pop those in, but if not, we can always follow up offline as well. So again, get in touch with us anytime. In the bottom right corner of the website, opsgenie.com, or inside the product, there's a little intercom box, chat box you can pop up and communicate with Colin or someone on his team anytime you like, and we'll get back to you and help you out. So I think with that, let me just check one more time. Yeah, I think we're set. So thank you again for coming to the webinar today. We hope you found it useful. Please give us feedback and let us know, or email or chat, and we'll see you again next time on the next webinar. So thanks. Have a great day.